Hey guys, welcome back to Human Condition. This video is another video on our philosophy series, and this video is what is generational archetypes. So this should be a pretty interesting one. This is actually a relatively new thing I just heard about. It's called generational archetypes. It's pretty cool because I've always been a guy who believed that potentially that the past repeats itself, and this theory kind of confirms it. This is a political philosophy, sociology. Basically suggests that basically every 80 to 100 years society cycles in a loop of high control but less individual freedom, a desire to have more individual freedom. This individual freedom is good but causes society to collapse and then rebuild itself in a cycle, a constant loop of repeating itself. And this theory suggests there's 4 main cycles in life and 4 generational personality types that happens every 80 years, over and over and over and over, which is pretty crazy, cool to think about. So yeah, starting off with the 4 generational types that happen every 80 years. The first one is born on the first generation, and these are the prophets. Prophets are born this time, and the ruling generation during this time are known as the artist the artist and the heroes and sort of the artist. And while the prophets are born during this time, but that will make more sense later on. But basically during this time, the first one's it's known as the high turning point, or the first turning point, the first cycle of the 4. And there's 4 generational types. The first cycle is kind of contrasted with high control in society and peace through control, though. So this is a time of very good societal peace and unity between nations and everyone, basically. Between people, it doesn't matter what party you're part of. It's a time of getting lit and crazy. It's a fun time in society in the first turning. However, the new generation born in this are called the prophets. And the reason they're called the prophets is because as they age, they slowly start to see that society's become too mundane and controlled and not productive, and lost touch to the spiritual, meaningful part to commercial and control over people. And that leads us, the prophets are born during this time, and that leads us to the second turning, the awakening. So this now, in the second turning, the prophets get a little bit older, and the heroes and the artists don't lead anymore, but now the artists lead, and the heroes lead from the sidelines, kind of. The prophets now are calling out the artist because they're saying, hey, the society you helped construct, that's what the artists do. The artists are help construct society, and redefine is not good. That's what basically happens the second turning. And you've lost touch with the individual purpose and you've lost touch with the moral goodness for society, and you've kind of fallen into corporate or societal control. And they call it the heroes, archetypes, and the artist. And then during the second turning, the generation that's born is the nomads, and this is because the prophets are like young adults, like 20-year-olds, and they're not focusing on their kids as much, sadly, which kids grow up being very individualistic, and just like their parents who aspire to be very individualistic. So the kids grow up this way in the second turning, and aspire to be like the prophet parents of changing society into more individualistic society. And then they grow up during the second turning cycle. Then the third turning comes around. The prophets take control and start changing society to more how they view it as more individualistic and more morally inclined. The nomads are now older and are off doing their own thing in society, but causing even more individualism with lack of maybe potential moral compass. No offense, by accident, not as much moral compass as the previous prophets. So they're just doing whatever it takes to get by because they were kind of raised themselves because the prophets were off trying to fix the world. They didn't focus on their kids, potentially. Maybe a little bit, but not a ton by accident. So during this third cycle, the nomads are kind of calling out the prophets now, prophet archetypes, and we're just doing things that are going against the status quo because they're individualistic and it's causing problems in society. And this is called the unraveling. Second turning was the awakening, spiritual awakening happens, which just means any spiritual awakening, guiding society back to a moral code, which is obviously good. The third one is unraveling because the nomads kind of lose this moral code again. And the kids born during this time, the heroes, the very important role, because they're born during a time of crisis where everything starts unraveling because the nomads are being too individualistic and kind of doing whatever they want and changing society because they've kind of also now lost their moral purpose. So yeah. And then finally, the last cycle is the fourth turning. This is when, turning the final one, the prophets still kind of lead, but the nomads are top dogs and in charge. And the artist heroes are now a little bit older and are calling out the prophets and the nomads because they're like, look what you've done to society, you kind of destroyed it by making it so individualistic, which is good, but so first morally good, but not quite as morally good when the nomads took over. So individualistic and very low moral codes. We have to kind of fix this. And the heroes are now like in their 20s or so, young phase, but they haven't fully took over yet. And during this fourth turning, the crisis time, the artists are born. And these are the people who will eventually go back, and then the cycle repeats. And then the heroes in the first turning are now the leaders, and they built a new society after a crisis, and everything is good until everything falls apart again. And that 80 to 100 year cycle happens about every 20 years roughly. So I thought this was pretty cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of tough. Now, being honest, I watched a show recently called Dark, and it talked about, highly recommend, only for adults, like very older people, because it's very dark. No pun intended. But it talks about, it's a time loop basically of 33 years, and this is kind of similar, but instead it's like a time loop in society of every 80 years. It's a cycle that repeats over and over and over again. And the coolest part is you can see each generation, the baby boomers, as each archetype. For example, the baby boomers right now are the current prophets archetype, of course, prophet archetype. It sounds bad if you say it that way, but prophet archetype are baby boomers. The Gen Xers are the nomads. The millennials somehow are heroes. No, just kidding. The millennials are heroes, which is cool. They're lit people. And the Gen Zs, that'd be me, I'm part of that, are the artists. And right now, we are when I was researching it, I wasn't sure, we're in the fourth turning, so we're actually in crisis, which kind of sucks. Meaning, and actually, the next first turning, the new high of society where everything's feeling good and great again, but lack of freedom is within, it suggests it's in 2030. So then the next couple years we'll see a lot of conflict potentially, but also unity as well through political parties and society as a whole, because people are slowly trying to break down the old structure and build some sort of new structure. Whatever that may be, we're not sure yet, but it suggests by 2030, the fourth turning will happen again, and society's at peace and everything's going great, but people lack freedom during this time. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So right now, if we're doing by the logic, the two people in charge right now of society are the prophets and the nomads. And the people that are challenging the authority of society right now are the heroes. And right now, people that are being born are the artists, the Gen Zs, now I guess Gen Alphas. And not to be too controversial, but if we figure out who the leaders are right now, our prophets, some leaders, current moment, like them or dislike them. I'm not gonna say how I feel about the leaders, but like them or dislike them. The prophets right now, it's said when I was researching it, were like people like in the age range of baby boomers, that'd be Trump, Biden, and Hillary Clinton. They're the prophets, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because they're the people most recent years who were in charge and have a vision. The nomads would be like people like Elon Musk, because he's very individualistic, has companies, and you can kind of see how he is very individualistic and kind of like that. And the heroes would be like younger newscasters, political newscasters. So any examples you can think of that? Maybe controversial newscasters would be the hero archetype right now. So yeah, and I guess these hero archetypes will be like kind of challenging the status quo in the next couple years, and it's kind of cool to see how it plays out. But this challenging will cause societal problems a little bit, but also societal unity and bringing people together as well for a new peaceful time, apparently. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But as always, thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe if you want. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.